Cars by Gary Newman. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. Our guest is Ralph Nader, the former presidential candidate, longtime consumer advocate. Ralph, I want to switch gears and ask you about the latest in the auto industry. General Motors announced today it's recalling more than, 1.3 million compact cars in North America because of a power steering problem that's been linked to 14 crashes. The firm said 4 models are affected: the Chevrolet Cobalt, Pontiac G5, Pontiac Pursuit, and Pontiac 4. GM blamed the fault on a supplier partially owned by Toyota. The GM recall comes as Toyota is continuing to call back millions of cars around the world following accelerator and braking problems. Meanwhile, the New York Times is reporting today that an analysis of government documents shows many Toyota Camrys built before 2007, which were not subject to recalls, have been linked to a comparable number of speed control problems as recalled Camrys. Ralph Nader, you first took on the car industry in the mid-'60s. Your first book, Unsafe at Any Speed, The Design and Dangers of the American Automobile, was published in '65. It took on GM and its Chevrolet Corvair. Talk about this latest news.
Well, computers on wheels are what the cars in the dealer showrooms are today. They're very complex. We can see that with the electronic throttles, the many microprocessors, software programs, glitches, maybe mechanical defects. And the Department of Transportation's NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, has at the same time in the last decade and a half been stripped of key staff. Its budget has been severely cut, and it cannot keep up with its regulatory responsibilities. Therefore, the motoring public does not have the confidence and cannot rely in the Department of Transportation having mandatory safety standards for electronic throttles and for brake overrides and for other potential breakdowns in the highly computerized engineering product known as the modern motor vehicle. So that's the problem. And to give you an idea of how absurd it is, there isn't one single engineer, scientist in NHTSA who is specialized in these electronic mechanical systems in cars today, number one. Number two, the motor vehicle safety budget in NHTSA, not the grants to the states. The motor vehicle safety budget deals with doing the research, issuing the safety standards, enforcing the safety standards, and requiring recalls is $140 million. Obama wants to cut it by $8 million for next year. Now, $140 million to deal with the safety of a problem that's taking over 40,000 American lives and hundreds of thousands of injuries on roads throughout the country can be compared, Amy, with the $675 million that the taxpayers are going to pay this year to guard the embassy in Iraq, pursuant to a criminal war of aggression. $670 million. So the priorities are upside down. We're dealing with a phenomenon known as institutional insanity in the federal government. And again, I have to go back to organizing the districts back home. Money is required for justice and safety, just as money is required for corporate lobbying, and it's a complete mismatch. And until enlightened, super-rich people decide that they are going to hire the thousands of organizers back home to come and take control of their government in Washington, all we're going to be doing is exposing these abuses, denouncing these abuses, and running on a treadmill.
Ralph, I want to turn now to a book that you have written in the introduction to. Washington, D.C. is the most powerful capital city in the world, but it's also a city that's deeply divided between a wealthy and extremely influential minority and an impoverished and largely disenfranchised African-American majority. The seat of global power is also home to a population that remains largely invisible to the politicians, the journalists, the lawyers, lobbyists, and contractors around Capitol Hill. This other Washington, D.C., maintains the dubious distinction of having the highest rate of child poverty, the highest mortality rate from HIV/AIDS, and the lowest life expectancy in the country. Ralph Nader, you wrote the introduction to this new book of black and white photographs documenting some of the haunting contrasts that mark our nation's capital. The photographer Kike Arnal is from Venezuela.